Good morning, everybody. Sorry for being a little bit late, some technical webinar issues. I would like to welcome you all to this webinar, and I would like to introduce you to Laura Malinsky and Zamit Zayan-Kuski. We are here to discuss the transformation of the Allianz Direct Contact Center, and Laura and Dizzy were a big part of this. So let's start right. So we have 30 minutes today. So Laura, you're a former Allianz Direct Operations Manager and now working for Twilio. And can you elaborate and paint us a picture of what it was like when you were working there on this project?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So Allianz Direct is a B2C insurance company. It was part of the larger arm of Allianz, which I'm sure most people are aware of. It's a global insurance company. B2C being direct business to consumer, personal lines insurance, so home, motor type insurance, occasional travel. Allianz Direct itself was tasked with creating a more seamless flow between our business and the customer, and obviously creating a profitable business, right? That's what we're all in business for. So in order to do that, we needed to come up with a complete holistic strategy from the entire company point of view. My task was obviously the operational side of things, but it is important to understand that operations, and I think people get a little confused sometimes what operations is, but operations is quite more than just a contact center, right? So it's about how we actually operate as a business, how we talk to our customers, and how we actually operate with inside that business itself. So our contact center people, and also our technical people, right? So Allianz Direct itself created a very flat organization. So the CEO, CIO, myself in operations, marketing people, but then straight away about 80 developers, right? So not just the operational developers, but developers across the board. So we were creating a new website, we were creating a new product, we were creating new legal wording. But for the purposes of this webinar, we're going to concentrate specifically on that contact center and operations piece. And in that space, we had 4 engineers.
Yep. Well, thanks. I see, Dizzy, your name is my name now, so don't worry about it. We'll correct this afterwards. So from your perspective and from Sabio's perspective, how did you prepare for this project when you first started hearing about it?
Right, sure. So my background comes from mostly from engineering and traditional web development. But by the time we started the project, I was already well versed with Twilio and Twilio Flex services. So I guess my role at Allianz was in 2 things. One is to do the all things Twilio consultancy. And then I would occasionally be approached by someone and asking, hey, can we do this X, Y, that in Twilio, or is it even possible, etc. So that was one big piece. And I think the other one was to actually augment the development team. So really to fill in any skills that the team was missing to push forward the implementation and delivery of the contact center. So that was what the Allianz requested from me. Back then, I guess my skill set a little bit stretched by the time I started doing the project. So I think one of the examples was that actually my consultancy grew to country managers as well. So when we were launching many different countries, and this is where I would consult. So not only the development team, but also the kind of the extended team of supervisors and team leaders. And there was a process of how we prepared for the project. So first of all, we signed the NDA whilst we were remote, and then we organized a few sessions to get to know the team, to get the feel of the code base. So the team leader of Allianz shared some of the code samples with us, so we can first of all get the feel of the code style and the various conventions that the team was used to. And I think it's really important if you're augmenting the team, as one of the lessons learned, that you actually have to augment yourself and your ways of working so you can actually fit into the team. That was quite new to me. And then we did a bit of an assessment, and then so we did the planning of our travels. So we worked out a schedule of how we're going to come to Munich, work in the offices with Allianz. So that was probably the hardest for me, because I had to balance that with my wife expectations around what it's been to be a good partner.
Yeah.
And then
Luckily, we were pretty happy with distributed teams at this moment, so it was great to have DC on site, absolutely. But of course, we already had ways of working through, similar to what we do now, right? So we're doing a webinar. Normally, we have a workshop, right? So
you guys have been working together for quite a while. In 2019, this project started, and over the years, and then COVID happened. But for you, Laura, what was the main reason or the first thing why you wanted a partner in this process?
Yeah, sure. So maybe to set the scene just a little bit further prior to that, and why then it brings on to why a partner was needed. Essentially, with Allianz Direct, we were 4 different countries using 4 different types of tech stacks, which didn't lend itself to being easily transformable, right? So I couldn't go into each of these countries and just say, hey, change your way of working, but use the old systems. So we really, as I was doing a little bit of vendor research, trying to find the right product in order to fulfill that need, and that's where Twilio Flex came on. It's a customer engagement platform that actually allowed us to build on top of either our existing stack or to completely change the way of working. And you're going to hear that through this webinar that's exactly what we did, on top of some things, but also completely changing the way of working. So in order to do that, we needed a little bit of help. We had engineers, of course, as I mentioned, we had 80 engineers of all ranging different talents, but choosing a new tech stack, if you will, or a new technology code did require a little bit of research as to, do I need new developers? Do I need some training? How do I do this? Fortunately, with Twilio Flex, we have the ability to provide professional services, which we took on board. But moving forward on top of that, being able to have a partner who already had the experience of using Flex or using this type of stack in different ways allowed us to not only learn how to, and have my developers learn how to actually code on this, let's call it low code, no code on some of them, but obviously there are other USPs that I wanted to have inside my contact centers that were maybe a little bit more bespoke or a little bit more nuancy. That required a little bit more of people who actually have used the product around the place. So it was a bit of a no-brainer for us to have someone like Sabio come in who, DZ had worked on this, on Flex for quite some time. He'd worked on other projects, and he was able to come in and kind of see it with fresh eyes. I was quite involved in this project, right? This is my baby. I was like right in the weeds. Whereas DZ was able to come in and be like, hey, Laura, have you thought about, a backup plan? Have you thought about this? And I was like, no, dude, I don't need it. I'm all good. And he's like, I don't think you are. And that was really the best part, is to bring a partner involved, because you were able to see things through the eyes of different projects.
Yeah. So, and for you, DZ, you started, then you have this fresh new look, and you see what's going on, and then you were in charge of the transformation. And can you elaborate a little bit more what kind of transformation the Allianz Direct undergo with Twilio and with you?
Yeah, it was quite unique experience for me, and I think from the technical perspective, we had some interesting challenges and successes as well. So I guess where we started was from legacy contact center solution that was not meeting the new standard of customer experience. So just to give you an example, the agents had to operate 22 different screens to be able to surface a customer request. So that was obviously driving a lot of overhead, both for agents and for customers, because customers had to wait. And then to be able to handle a single customer request that was usually involved multiple different agents. So handover from one agent to another was quite common. But in general, I guess the solution that they had in place wasn't quite agile enough to to deliver the features quickly in an agile manner. Therefore, so we started fresh with Twilio Flex. However, because that's a really well-established business, so the two solutions had to coexist together while we, implementing and rolling out the Twilio Flex in phased approaches, right? Also, I should mention that we were launching in 4 different countries. So we sit together with the product owner, sketch the plan of which countries are going live, which order, and I guess the interesting thing here is that Dutch actually were the ones that went live first, and
our Dutch listeners, you were very complimentary to the Dutch. They were wanting to innovate.
I can praise Netherlands for being probably the most collaborative in this transformation, and also the most forward-thinking country. So we had the least pushbacks on the new ways of working when we went live in Netherlands. So well done, Netherlands. And then straight after we've gone live there, so came Germany, and so Germany is probably the hardest from the technical perspective, because they had a very diverse portfolio of services, which for us meant, as a development team, meant that we had to find really creative technical solutions to be able to meet that agile, quick agile delivery of features into production requirement. So and I guess one of the examples, for example, is that Germany had a really huge IVR, like the options that they provided to the users, and then so the Twilio solution, I guess, wasn't I would say initially, so it was just launched, like Twilio Studio was just launched, it was in beta, and that it's quite user friendly actually to get started. But when it comes to scaling to something of the scale of Germany, we had some struggles, and this is, I think, where Sabio comes. The benefit of having a partner like Sabio in implementation comes in, because the scalability is really our bread and butter. So we found quite nice, interesting approaches where how to get that done.
I think it's super important as well to, the way Allianz Direct was working, and we mentioned Agile a few times now, but I think it's important to understand, and it's a recommendation that I give to a lot of people that I speak to, is get your engineers close to the people who are using the stack at the end, right? So classic example there, exactly as DZ was mentioning about this very convoluted, very large IVR, sounds quite complex. To be honest, it was, when you look at it written down on paper. I remember tasking the PO, all right, write it all down on paper and let's see how we can make it simple. And he came back a week later with like pages and pages and pages of PowerPoint presentations with schematic maps and everything.
The same thing.
Brilliantly done, and it was really, really helpful for Dizzy and I to sit down and then try and, do we need this? Do we need this? But I really want to point out here that Dizzy doesn't just come in and look at it from a technical standpoint, but he comes in with that technical eye, but we're able to speak to the PO or the person who's actually doing the day-to-day business in a more operational sense. That doesn't happen in traditional IT teams. Usually they're very far removed, maybe even in different countries or different buildings, and you don't have that marry of technical and operations. And here, this was super key. I could bring DZ into a meeting room and say, sit down with this guy and let's work out, make it simple. And that, was able to be done. So
there must have also been some challenges in implementing this whole new way of working and, bringing this to a new platform. Any things that you can share with us, Laura, around what it was like for you as an operation manager as well?
Yeah, sure. So above the technical stuff, the operational point of view was quite unique. What I wanted to do, and my background is contact center. I've been in the space for 16 years. I've been the girl on the phone asking, the customer what they wanted. So I understand the pain points and those 22 screens and, the things you have to follow. What I really wanted to update and change was the mentality and thought process from going from a cost center to an actual contact center, and allowing our agents to have the empowerment to actually service the customers the way they see fit. These guys are speaking to our customers all day, every day. Why are we not giving them that adult viewpoint of do what you need to do in order to make the customer happy in the realm of your expertise, because you are our experts. To do that, I needed to allow them to have the freedom to speak to the customers for as long as possible, or for whatever needs that they needed for, call the customer back, do it on chat, do it via email, however that customer wanted to be spoken to. That required a whole operational change of way of working. So it wasn't a case of I tell you when to come in, I tell you when to go to lunch, I tell you when to go for a bathroom break. It is you tell me, when is it necessary? When do you need to? I give them all the information that they needed, and Flex enabled me to do that because the call boards are situated directly onto their screens. We created different, and Dizzy will talk about this, but different technical ways to be able to work in a more autonomous and more empowered way, and in a more agile way, so those agents can then, service our customers. But the challenge here is, how do you change a business that has been doing this for the beginning of time of contact centers, right? This is a completely new way of working. And it worked in some countries and not in other countries. And I would never be able to sit here and say, here's a blueprint to do it, because you need to, test and try. But that's the beauty of what we're talking about here, is something that completely changes something within 3 months. It sounds very, very scary and technically difficult, but we were actually able to do this within 3 months quite quickly, because we reduced the amount of room that needed to go. I didn't have to go from the CEO down to the board, down to, he had, a completely flat structure that allowed us to make changes and do things very quickly. I think the key example here is one of the other engineers walked into our contact center in the Netherlands and opened up his laptop and said, tell me what you want. What would make your life easier? What could we do? And he was able to code there on the spot, and the agents were able to see, wow, what I need actually, makes a difference. It's making sense.
And getting the input from the agents towards the developers, did you have any specifics how you took that? Because they want a lot, and then the developer is there and like, oh, I want this, I want this. How do you deal with that?
Exactly. I'm glad you brought that up, because what I'm mentioning here is having that flat organization, which sounds great, but it has its own challenges the other way around. You open up the floodgates of maybe too much communication. Maybe you're getting too many ideas. I had a girl in one of the contact centers said, oh, I like pink. Can you make mine pink? I had someone else say, I want to have a flashing button so I can walk away from my computer screen, but still know that there's a call coming through or a chat that I need to do. Which one's got the higher priority? But if I can put that back onto the agents and say, okay, you tell me, would it make your life easier if the screen was pink, or would it make your life easier if you knew there was an incoming call? So bringing them on that journey was, really key here, and able to help them understand where those priorities lie. But of course, having our engineers close to the agents meant I had to then step in and prioritize the communication piece, at least.
It sounds like it was a fun time, also those 3 months, and there's a lot of successes that you got an award for. It. We'll come to that later, but I wanted to ask the DZ as well, like what kind of technical successes did you see, and would you still want to share with us when you look back at that time?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot, so you will have to stop me at some point. So
I will.
I'll just go ahead. So I think one of the key things that I love about this project is that we aligned customer and agent experiences. So that was one of the key, strategic decisions that the business took front, is that we are going to, so Allianz had a really nice customer digital journey, so customer portal, and we actually took that portal and embedded into Twilio Flex, so that by the time, so if the customer has any issues, they would call, agent would see exactly what they're struggling with, so they'll be really much aligned together. And then the agent can further educate the customer, to basically guide the customer to a resolution using the same portal. I think this is awesome. I think the other thing that I like from a technical perspective is that we were a small team of engineers, maybe a handful of 3 to 5, depending on the time of the year. But we were managing a single code base that would then be powering kind of the 4 different country deployments. And I think this is super cool. So Flex with those, as a platform, it was rich SDKs and APIs. It basically allows you to have this common core, and then have this kind of extend this common core into different business units, whichever your business has, and to create allowed you basically to reuse the code, and for us that means saving a lot of time. So we're not. That wasn't 4 different projects, it was 1 project, right? So that's second thing. And I guess complementary to the previous one, we had a really safe and focused deployments. So basically, so coming back to that German IVR solution, so what we did, we actually moved a lot of things into the code. So the Twilio Studio, while being a user-friendly tool, also provides you a low-level API for more complex use cases. So, and by moving things into the code, we actually could benefit from a plethora of traditional web development practices stuff like PR reviews, automated deployments, going, from stage into production without even touching a thing. So that gave us a lot of peace of mind and basically ultimately safety to those deployments and to those night sleep. Last one. Okay, I have 3, but I need to choose something. All right. So innovation, I think, is key because, well, that's inherent to Twilio Flex. So we went live early with both WhatsApp and Facebook in pretty much every country where it was relevant, but also traditional channels like voice. We introduced features like voicemail or call me back. So users, when they spend a lot of time, if there was a peak, something happened, they spend a lot of time, could be an hour actually, on the call. But then if they hear something like, hey, press 1 and we'll call you back when you reach the top of the queue, they immediately jumped into it. And we had a really nice feedback from that.
Thanks, yes. And then Laura, from your side, all these successes, they need to be measured in the end, right? You got KPIs, you got metrics.
Yeah.
What kind of things were you looking at that time, and what kind of metrics started changing after this 3-month?
Yeah, sure. It's
project
again,
you did?
yeah, it's one of the more common questions I get asked, because going from a traditional contact center where you have your traditional SLAs and KPIs, they're set in stone, and I didn't remove them. I kept them, right? I still wanted to be able to see what was happening in these contact centers and understand the concept. I also needed to have a base of a platform of where were we and where are we today? Did any of this make any indicative change, right? What the difference is that I didn't use those KPIs to measure the agents any further. I gave them the information in order to help them understand where they were and what they're going to move forward. But I didn't use that information in order to chastise or discipline or, make concrete changes to their workday on a day-to-day basis, but more as what happened last week, what happened last month, are we moving in the right trajectory? But what I think the key success measure here for us was prior to this change, we would have an 11% sick leave. Anyone who's worked in contact centers before knows that is really, really indicative to a massive change in your business. You can't function and get your SLAs with an 11% sick leave, because on top of that, you also have holidays, you have meetings, you have other off the phone activities that really hinder being able to speak to your customers. After the change, we were at 4% sick leave, and that was during a global pandemic. So we were able to, completely change our way of working. Thankfully, I can't say I was ever going to be prepared for this, because I can't think anyone in the world would be prepared for a global pandemic back in 2020. But thankfully, it all lent itself to, packing up one day and working from home the next day, and nothing changed. The agile way of working not only worked well, but worked super well in that particular type of environment, because we all know how it worked out, right? We were all on Zoom calls. But now my agents were able to contact each other using, non-traditional channels. They weren't walking around their contact center anymore, but they could use, technical channels in order to keep contact with each other, keep changing information, keep exchanging information, and working continuously. So look, those are the 2 key measurements for me as far as the success of this project. And as you mentioned, ultimately, yes, we did win an award for
Savio was the one that also said,
Savio nominated us for an award.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it was the most effective transformation in a contact center for 2020.
Yeah. So, and what was the reason that you think you were chosen, or what kind of you probably got awarded a speech, what were the main innovations that you guys mentioned about?
Exactly, what we did, because it wasn't just a one-stop shop. Like, we didn't just change one thing and expect a full transformation. We changed a multitude of things, but we also learnt along the way. So I'm a big advocate for reducing change fatigue. If you're going to go on a large project like this, you need to make sure that people either have all the communication and all the information, but definitely they need to understand why you're going through this change, which helps people understand. Those who are not part of the strategic direction also can go along that journey with you and go, okay, well, I know that my job's going to change because they're going to change, what systems I use. I know that my job's going to change because they're wanting to, rewrite the way we work. but I also know that I get to provide input to that. And that, I think, is the reason and the key why this was a success and how we won that award.
And just a quick follow-up on that. Did you do that on a platform? Did you do that per mail? How did you keep everybody informed and up to date about the changes you were making?
Yeah, so not just me, I can't take full credit for this, but as a business, as what we were doing, we ran in sprints at Allianz Direct, the whole board, right? So everybody from the CEO all the way to the contact center agents were able to come every other Wednesday to our demo day. And so the demo day, we showed everyone, this is what we're up to. This is what we've done the last 2 weeks from every single part of the business. So like I said, from the beginning, the product team, the website team, the operations team, the engineer team, the architecture team, everyone gave a demo. It went for about 4 hours every Wednesday. And people were allowed to dial into this and fully be part of that process and see where we were along the journey.
Yeah. Well, talking about sprints, I think it's a nice bridge to DZ again. I mean, when you look back on this project, and there's people listening now, and maybe people watching this back, and they are of course waiting for your advice also to see like what kind of things can they start off with, what kind of key takeaways can you give them from this project, from a technical side, or from your side of the story.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, use this transformation as a blueprint. That's my kind of recommendation. I think it was a really nice way of doing things. So first, envision the future of your customer experience. So everything is possible. And then start with Twilio Flex because it's agile enough for you to start, for your development team to start. Everything is there documented. Step number business. Or you can start with the partner, from the very start, because we can help you also do that vision if required, and then we can also kind of hand-hold you through the whole process if necessary. So,
right. So Lara, for you, we've been talking a lot about Sabio, Twilio, Allianz Direct, and Twilio Flex has been mentioned a couple of times as well. I mean, something that the company of Twilio is moving in direction of. What can you tell us a little bit more about what Flex can bring to a company who is starting out with Twilio, and like what makes it so different from other things that you guys have done in the past?
Yeah, sure. So Twilio Flex, being a customer engagement platform, as I mentioned before, is it's unique in the sense that it brings together either your traditional tech stack or indeed create your own ways. Just like what we did in Allianz Direct, we had old traditional tech stacks, whether they've been on-prem or already cloud-based solutions. We were able to augment some of them, either the augmentation, as I said. So we had the on-prem solution that perhaps wasn't out of contract yet, but we were able to put Twilio Flex on top of that and have instant wins, very quick wins. And then also not have to spend double, didn't have to renew contracts, could allow the contract to finish without any penalties, and then be able to already be prepared to take over where the on-prem solution finished. So there was that part, but there was also a case of you can rip and replace if you needed to, or if you had the ability to do so. So if you're, as DZ said at the beginning, if you've got your customer journey prepped out, if you know where you want to go, you've got your vision, you've planned it, and you set yourself up with a backlog of activity, you could potentially build and then go directly live. And in the fact of the Netherlands, that's what we did within the 3 months. It was a complete rip and replace, right? But with our other countries, that was not always the case. So you have the ability. It shouldn't be looked at, Twilio Flex, as being something that is build only. There are out of the box features. There are obviously your common channels such as your voice, your chat, and your user interface. Also reporting, of course, is a natural out of the box solution that Flex already provides, so that you can actually monitor from the minute you go live as to where you're actually sitting as far as where you need to go.
Sounds good. Unfortunately, the time is already gone by so quickly. It's 30 minutes. It's too short to actually go through it all. But I would really like to thank you both for your time. We are going to see each other at the Open Vare event here in the Netherlands, where we're going to host on a boat. So for people who are listening and watching this, you can expect maybe an email and an invite for this. If you've enjoyed talking or listening about this, Laura will be there, and I will be there. DZ might come to the Netherlands shortly as well. So I want to thank you both and have a great sunny day, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.